After the restart, Terry Labonte limps home powerless in his number 11 Budweiser Ford. Engine failure. Bill Elliott's not far behind. Hood goes up on the number 9 Coors Thunderbird. And there goes the number 29 Hardy's machine. Mike Waltrip gives Rick Wilson a push back to the pits. Wilson's engine is dead. The Wallace crew, directed by Barry Dotson, is having a flawless afternoon. And the Kodiak mount is comfortably out front when the checkered flag waves. Wallace is on a tear. It's his 5th win of the campaign, the 2nd in 2 weeks. That might just be the race that decides the national title. Wallace is closing in on Dale Earnhardt's point lead, and Mark Martin is coming up, not far behind, as the campaign zeroes in on Bristol, Tennessee, and the Busch 500, the only night race in the Winston Cup season. Few events capture the attention of Winston Cup loyalists like the late August Busch 500 lapper at Bristol International Raceway. The packed house, sold out 2 weeks in advance, loves this version of Saturday Night Live, and the tension mounts when the lights go on. Alan Kowicki's number 7 Ford, Jeff Bodine, and the number 5 Chevrolet pace the start. Sterling Marlin slides out of control in his number 94 Sunoco Olds. Mike Waltrip's Country Time Pontiac takes a beating, and he's the first car out. It's typical Bristol mayhem. Engines blowing, cars spinning. This is old-fashioned short-track racing that registers high on the Richter scale. Dale Earnhardt and Jeff Bodine do their own framming and bamming. Morgan Shepherd splatters oil all over the back chute. Kyle Petty's number 42 in serious trouble. Winston Cup leader Dale Earnhardt, after sharing the lead several times, punches the wall. He's down, but not out, and will have to settle for a finish near the middle of the pack. It's to be Darrell Waltrip night. Bristol had welcomed an old suitor back to victory lane. The Tide Chevrolet driver had won 7 out of 8 races back in the early 80s here, and now was on his way back to the top. The knot drew tighter in the Winston Cup standings as the campaign prepared to tackle tricky Darlington in the legendary Labor Day weekend Heinz Southern 500, the oldest superspeedway race in the game. This is one race that every driver wants to win. It's the history-rich Southern 500 at legendary Darlington. This late summer 500-mile classic is the oldest superspeedway race on the circuit by 10 years. And its record book is adorned with such famous names as Fireball Roberts and Curtis Turner, Joe Weatherly, Buck Baker, Ned Jarrett, and more. The men who forged the foundation for the sport. Busch pole winner Alan Kowicki bolts to an early lead, but this race would turn out to be a very special story. Kowicki hits the burners as he leads the field back to the stripe. The engine explodes in Eric.Cox's number 10 Pontiac. Jimmy Spencer renews the old tradition of Darlington, a stripe in the number 88 Crisco Oldsmobile. Mean old Darlington's taking its measure. Good off-track friends Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace try to turn this 500-miler into a two-man tag team affair. They're the top drivers in the Winston Cup standings coming to Darlington. Darrell Waltrip's Tide Chevrolet is suddenly smoking. All hopes of claiming the Winston $1 million bonus evaporates into the storied pages of Darlington history, 1989. Larry Pearson, at number 16, spins. Kowicki retires with engine failure. Earnhardt and Wallace continue their assault, but this will be Earnhardt's day, and the script writers in Hollywood couldn't have developed a more dramatic story. Less than 24 hours earlier, Ralph Earnhardt, Dale's late father, and the 1956 NASCAR National Short Track Champion, and been inducted into the National Motorsports Press Association Hall of Fame. Memories of those old days and Ralph Earnhardt were shared on the eve of the Southern 500.
Well, Ralph was the guy that you absolutely did not want to be leading the race on white flag lap because he was the type of guy that he would outsmart you, he would outrace you. And if it come right down to it, he had a right front tire that broke loose a lot of times on the last lap. You go down and you say, Ralph, why'd you bump into me on the last lap? And he'd say, son, I don't know. I'd cut in under you and the front tire would just start skating a little bit and I couldn't keep it out to the left rear quarter. And he wouldn't wreck you, but he would make his presence known and he would win the race.
We had a little racetrack up right above us there called Rowland Speedway or something. And he come up there one night and had his leg broke, had it in a cast. Went out and won the dadgum race. I mean, you know, and that, like I say, he was sort of one of my heroes, and that just made it that much better.
Well, I didn't get to race against him much, but I did a little bit, and he always intimidated me, you know, but I think that's because I admired him so much and watched him race from the time I was growing up, and he learned me so much just watching him and working with him in the shop. And when I started driving, it was pretty much easy for me to do, and I thought I was pretty good, and I got to race against him a couple of times, and it's pretty tough. I think he'd be proud of us and what's going on. It'd just be great to have him here.
It was fitting, it was appropriate. Earnhardt charges to victory. A magnificent climax to a memorable weekend. Dale's 5th win at Darlington, but none more meaningful. The Winston Cup point scramble is tight, and following a Wallace victory at Richmond, the Tour moves on to Dover, Delaware. The 500-mile battles over the Monster Mile at Delaware's Dover Downs have turned into fan-pleasing extravaganzas, and the mid-September Peak Performance 500 certainly kept that tradition alive. The house was packed, the fans waiting for the fireworks. Davey Allison's Hamlin Ford and Alan Kowicki share the front row. The scramble's underway. Allison sets the pace on lap 1. Ernie Irvin in the number 2 Pontiac is sidelined early ignition problems. The activity on pit road once again fast and furious. But this afternoon, it's Dale Earnhardt and the Richard Childress Chevrolet who begins to take center stage. The 3-time champion holds off all challengers. The hood goes up on Darrell Waltrip's Tide machine. In 10 years of trying, Earnhardt has never even finished in the lead lap at a Dover race. But in this season, he's clearly the conqueror of the monster. 2 victories and the leader in 833 of a possible 1,000 laps. That's getting the job done with dominating style. And the fight for the Winston Cup crown was turning into a 3-man war, with Earnhardt well up in front, Rusty Wallace and Mark Martin in 2nd and 3rd. Martinsville was next. Bill Elliott is a very popular man on the Winston Cup Trail, and Martinsville is no exception. But there was an interruption to the normal race routine. Contemptuous Hurricane Hugo delivered a late September sucker punch right to the heart of Major League stock car racing. After South Carolina's historical port city of Charleston was turned into a disaster area, this raging weather warlord set its sights on Charlotte. It scored a direct hit. Charlotte Motor Speedway seemed to be the bullseye, and with less than 3 weeks to its annual October race. Dale Earnhardt was so busy mending fences on his farm, he missed the qualifying session at Martinsville. Jimmy Hensley, a Grand National regular, qualified the car in Earnhardt's absence and ended up putting it on the pole with the quickest time. Earnhardt led the first 17 laps of the Goody's 500 Classic at one of the prettiest half-mile tracks in the nation. Jeff Bodine was running strong, but an unscheduled pit stop proved to be his undoing. Waltrip makes a bid on the outside of Earnhardt to take over the lead on lap 18. Tire woes strike 1988 champion Bill Elliott. The Goody's 500 turns into a tug of war. between Earnhardt, Wallace, and Darrell Waltrip. With Dale and Rusty side by side, Darrell squeezes in to make it 3 abreast on this tight half mile. Waltrip's patience pays off. His 6th win of the season, his 11th career win at Martinsville. He's not out of the title run yet. Five races remain on the schedule. Earnhardt is feeling the heat from Wallace and Martin, possibly Waltrip too after the Martinsville afternoon of surprises. The battle for the Winston Cup title clearly in focus, and the All-Pro Auto Parts 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway could just prove to be the deciding contest. But first, there was an unusual issue to settle. And oh, did it tug on the heartstrings. The legendary Silver Fox, David Pearson, back in the saddle again. Neil Bonnet, the Woods brothers' regular driver, was temporarily sidelined by injury. The October race was on the horizon. Pearson was asked to drive.
I think he's like, probably I am. He sits around and sees some of these boys run. He said, ain't no way they can beat me, you know what I mean? So he's out there to try it again, but he'll have a good time. He'll really enjoy it.
He agreed to test the car and his physical condition in an open practice.
I can fit it in my back, you know, and so if it gets worse, and naturally I don't want to run the car. I don't want to make a fool out of myself and get out there and say run 100 miles and have to get out of the car. I want to be able to run it all if I do it, so I'm just going to have to run a while and later on just see how it feels.
His speeds were highly competitive, but the next day, David Pearson officially announced his retirement. Back problems from other years were aggravated, and he wasn't going to go out and run second best. Once a champion, always a champion. 500-miler at Charlotte, Coors Ford standard bearer Bill Elliott and the Chevrolet, the Folgers car of Ken Schrader, led the start from their front row qualifying positions. Both drivers had it in their mind to lead, and neither was willing to back off. They're side by side down the back chute, heading into 3. There is still no surrender as they pound through the trioval. Both cars dip down into turn 1 with the rest of the field in pursuit. All but one car, the black number 3 of Dale Earnhardt, is in trouble and headed for the pits. The hood is up and the Winston Cup point leader has broken a camshaft. He's done for the day and will be put in the position of having to catch up instead of hold off Rusty Wallace and Mark Martin. Rusty knows this is his chance to put the pressure truly on. It's Jerry O'Neill into the wall in the front chute. A fairly trouble-free day for the front runners. Only 4 caution periods, a total of 21 laps. As the Charlotte battle winds down, it's Schrader in control and on the way to his first win of the year. It's a victory built around a team starting to come together.
Well, you know, Jake Eller came over and became chassis specialist for all 3 of the Hendricks cars the middle of the year. In fact, of Charlotte weekend, and it really helped us. We got running a little better. The car's driving awful good, and you know, we got knocking on our door there. We couldn't get 1-1, and finally get Charlotte, and it helped us for sure.
Listen, another thing I want to, what did it mean to you personally to win at a place like Charlotte, which is an extremely tough track to win on?
It meant my neighbors trashed my house.
The Winston Cup clock is ticking down. Rusty Wallace is the new points leader as the circuit moves to North Wilkesboro, North Carolina for the Holly Farms 400. The rescheduled Holly Farms 400 at North Wilkesboro in the Blue Ridge Mountains is the last short track stop of the year, and it can, as it has so many times past, play a pivotal role in the title run. This contest, no exception. Dale Earnhardt has to rebound from his Charlotte miseries. He knows it. A strong finish in the Holly Farms race is the only way he can keep his title hopes on the front burner. All eyes are on his number 3 Good Wrench machine. The Winston Cup is burning in his eyes, and he knows what he has to do. Go for it. And he did with gusto. But as the season winds down and every point in the title chase becomes so important, the drivers become more intense, their driving style more aggressive. The track at North Wilkesboro is not a forgiving lady. Overstep the boundaries, you're in trouble. When the dust finally settled and the pieces were all picked up, Earnhardt led the field around for the restart, but once more the yellow was called as Bobby Hillin spin. Earnhardt is on a winning mission. After 398 laps, he's been the leader for 342. But his dream race turns into a nightmare with less than a mile to go. Earnhardt leads a fast-closing Ricky Rudd as the pair slip and slide out of 4, swapping paint as they head for the white flag. There's one more meeting of metal in turn 2, and both cars are victims. Ironically, Rudd never led a lap in the race, and Earnhardt would wind up 10th, a showing that would prove costly. Jeff Bodine, the thankful winner, led only one lap, that most important lap, the final one. Bodine picks up the chips in victory lane and talks about the competitive nature of the game.
You know, just to be here, I've probably heard this before, is great. It's really an accomplishment, and you need to be happy with that because you can't win all these darn races. You know, I know that. We go out here week in and week out trying to win, but, you know, I know we can, and we did win North Wilkesboro. Sure, there was some controversy involved, but, boy, I lost a few that way. I can name probably 5 or 6, actually. So that felt good. It really did. You know, I hadn't lost any confidence in myself, but it just seems like a lot of pressure came off my shoulders that day at Wilkesboro when I drove into victory lane, and there's no better feeling than the thrill of victory.
Following the controversial North Wilkesboro finish, Ricky Rudd only looks ahead to the next race.
You know, to me, it's one race at a time. Whatever happened the last race, I try to forget about it. We had an incident, I guess, that happened in North Wilkesboro that I think a lot of people maybe wanted to make more out of it than what it really was, but all it really amounted to was I had a good car at the end of the race. Earnhardt's car was fading. I wanted to win the race, and so did he. And we both, I went for a spot that there was at the time was a good hole for it, and he shut the door, which situation was reversed. I probably wouldn't want to give up the win either.
Rusty Wallace is solidly on top in the Winston Cup standings as the teams head for the AC Delco 500 at Rockingham with just 3 races to go. Anytime the Winston Cup regulars pull into Rockingham, North Carolina's Motor Speedway for the late October AC Delco 500, they know it's put up or shut up time. The days are growing short among the few who have hopes of snaring the Winston Cup title. And the other top contenders know that a late season win at the Rock can cement their sponsorship or pave their way to a new one. In short, this is a very long, grueling race that can pave the way to a comfortable upcoming season, and the pressure of the championship run is at a fever pitch. Alan Kowicki's on the pole, Darrell Waltrip alongside. Kowicki assumes early command. Wallace, after qualifying a disappointing 21st, begins to move up through the field. Waltrip replaces Kowicki in the #1 spot, and win-hungry Dale Earnhardt is tight in the chase. The action that Rockingham is famous for soon comes into play. 53, Jerry O'Neill spins. Back under green, it's Waltrip and the man in black, Earnhardt, side by side for the lead. Both drivers still very much in the point chase, neither one wanting to back off. But turn 2 claims another victim. It's rookie Hut Strickland. Earnhardt leads Waltrip on the restart, but Wallace is closing in. He's moving up into the top 10. Then things really get out of control. Slipping and sliding, will it ever stop? Suddenly, the top two contenders for the national championship are